周一，驻东盟大使邓锡军在雅加达举行视频记者会，介绍王毅国务委员兼外长出席东亚合作系列外长会情况。人民日报、新华社、深圳卫视以及海峡时报、雅加达邮报、印尼国家电台等10余家中外媒体记者获邀参加。外界注意到，此次东盟系列会议期间，作为域外国家的美国不断搞破坏，向东盟国家渲染所谓中国威胁论调。在回答深圳卫视记者提问时，邓大使明确提到，美国已经成为东亚区域合作最大的破坏者。
邓锡军大使首先介绍了此次东亚系列外长会的整体情况。关于中国东盟10+1外长会，邓大使表示，这是今年6月上旬在中国重庆举行的中国东盟特别外长会后仅隔2个月，中国和东盟国家外长们通过线上再度聚首。他提到，此次中国东盟外长会取得圆满成功，进一步凝聚共识，提振信心，将有力深化地区抗疫合作，推动地区经济加快复苏，拓展可持续发展合作，践行多边主义。关于东盟与中日韩10+3外长会，邓大使表示，外长一致同意加强疫苗研发等公共卫生领域合作，坚持多边主义和自由贸易，拓展数字经济、气候变化等新兴领域合作。邓大使说，王毅国委员兼外长在系列会议中重点围绕抗疫合作、疫后复苏、区域合作架构、地区热点问题等介绍了中方的立场主张，受到与会国的赞赏和支持。深圳卫视记者注意到，此次东盟系列会议上，中国提出建设性方案时，美国却在搞破坏。美国国务卿布林肯不仅当着东盟国家的面对所谓中国核武库的快速扩张表达关切，对新疆、西藏、香港事务指手画脚，还直接对东盟摆架子施压。不仅如此，美方近来的一连串行程显示出华盛顿在东南亚展开布局。7月底以来，美国防长奥斯汀、国务卿布林肯等高官对东南亚展开密集外交攻势，怂恿英法军舰轮番进入南海。这些举动都是美国在南海拉帮结派搞小集团的例证。在回应深圳卫视记者提问时，邓锡军明确提到，美国已经成为东亚区域合作最大的破坏者。
It is said that the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin made quite a lot of negative comments on China as they attended the ASEAN-related foreign ministers' meetings and visited Southeast Asia respectively. What is your response to them? Thank you.
The US and its allies, including Japan and Australia, under the pretext of human rights and democracy, smeared China on issues concerning Xinjiang and Hong Kong at EAS and ARF foreign ministers' meetings last week, which was sternly refuted by Wang Yi. Their smearing didn't get any echoes from ASEAN countries. Was hard to sell, if not possible, in the East Asia cooperation platforms, and is completely self-proclaimed and self-defeating.
邓锡军表示，美国这种伪多边主义的行径冲击东盟中心地位，给东亚合作带来严重负面影响。这一说法也得到了东盟国家的普遍认同。东盟外长们就呼吁保持南海和平稳定，强调不能搞地缘对抗和分裂对立，不希望本地区成为大国博弈的角力场。新加坡联合早报指出，更让东盟国家不舒服的是，美方这次所表现出来的与中国交锋的姿态。
I urge the US and its allies to be somber reminded about the prevailing trend of the times that is oriented with cooperation and development, and listen to the call of regional countries, return to the right course, and engage the region in anti-pandemic cooperation and economic recovery. What the US should do for the region is to send more vaccines and less warships, to do more to promote cooperation and less to stir up trouble.
新加坡总理李显龙近期也在一次公开论坛中表示，拜登政府希望与中国开展竞争，但是将竞争对手视为对手还是敌手，其中存在一条非常微妙的界限。他提到，包括美国盟友在内的许多国家仍希望两国关系的恶化能够得到遏制。
When all of the countries in Asia and many of the countries in Europe have China as their biggest trading partner and America as a very major friend and sometimes ally. To have a bifurcation means they've got to split down the middle of many societies. which I think is going to be very hard. So in this situation, I would say to both, pause, think carefully before you fast forward. It's very dangerous. No good outcome can arise from a conflict. It's vital for the US and China to strive to engage each other to head off a clash, which would be disastrous for both sides and the world.
深圳卫视记者注意到，今年的东亚合作系列外长会议上，以美国为首的个别域外国家试图以所谓南海仲裁案再次将南海搅混搅乱。邓锡军回应称，炒作不能改变这一裁决是非法无效的、没有约束力的本质。中方的立场是一贯的、明确的，即我们不接受、不承认。邓锡军还介绍了中国与东盟国家为推进南海和平稳定所做的具体进展。他表示，中国和东盟国家克服困难，在全面有效落实宣言的框架下，以灵活的方式推进准则磋商，连续多次密集举行落实宣言联合工作组特别视频会议。6月初，中国和东盟国家在重庆举行落实宣言实体高官会，同意尽快恢复准则案文2读工作。根据这一共识，落实宣言联合工作组已经举行2次会议，通过线上方式加快推进准则2读。8月3号举行的中国东盟外长会正式宣布，准则前言部分已经达成初步一致。
The progress is truly a hard-won achievement amid globally surging pandemic. It is a loud demonstration of the firm political will of parties concerned to stay immune from external disruptions and advance the consultation.